Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You can guess that this is going to be a bit of a downbeat video based on the thumbnail and probably the title of this video. I wanted to do, some Overwatch Champion Series coverage. I want to do a bit of new stuff. I wanted to go through some of the games, and I've been really damning my life right now that I've got a lot of stuff going on. I've also not been feeling well. You may be able to notice I'm pretty sleep deprived right now. But I've snuck in, a 5 or 10 minute period to just talk through what went on in NA last night. Because it was not a good look for the Overwatch esports scene, which is now trying to, reclaim some glory again after Owl folded. And just some members of the community have basically tried to sabotage it, which is really weird. Really, really weird. Anyway, for those that don't know, I'll tell you the running story of what was happening, what caused what to happen, and so on and so forth, as best I understand it. A lot of this will be he says, she says, and if I don't have any, screen grabs or anything, I will not call other people out from it. Anyway, so let's go to an OG photo of better times, right? When we had this was M80, and these are going to be this is going to be like the centerpiece roster of the whole thing. So M80 was an org-backed team. This is their first foray into Overwatch, I believe. I don't know what other esports they're working on, but they're a brand working for multiple esports. And they announced 2 days ago their team, which was Ultraviolet, Liar, Seeker, Sam, Kaluge, and it was going to be captained by coach by McGravy and assistant Eric M. Perez. Lovely. This is a very, very solid squad. And I think people saw this as one of the big NA teams. And a lot of the NA reveals have been coming very late in the day is another thing I would like to preface this with. So a lot of the reveals were happening on the day. Some were happening, as I said, yesterday, 2 days ago, that type of thing. It wasn't quite as settled as where it felt like EU was, at least for the big major teams. Toronto accepted they had theirs sorted for quite a while. Last night was in case you didn't know, was the preliminaries for the NA Overwatch Champion Series scene. We went over this for Korea, Japan, and Pacific before in another video. It's basically a Swiss stage, I believe, to go through 9 games during it, where of the registered teams that anyone could register, I think it was 500 teams that registered for this in the end, for NA. They would be all drawn against one another in these various 9 matches to determine who were the better teams, and then the top 16 of these teams through the Swiss format will go into Stage 1 NA. So there's a lot riding on this, right? There is a financial incentive at the end for both the players that don't have orgs, and the orgs themselves. The financial incentive was how well the team could do. Could they qualify for LAN? Can they win, the whole thing? So this was the start of that journey. This was the rebirth of Overwatch esports, especially in NA. We'll posit this with NA, because EU and Korea, and I think Japan and Pacific, have got off relatively, without a hitch. Anyway, about 2 hours before the registration closed for this event. In fact, I don't know if it was 2 hours before the registration closed. It might be an hour before it closed. It was so close to the registration closing. This tweet came out from someone called Viewer, who I have seen tweeting stuff in the scene. They're not an unheard of entity. And they tweeted that today a burner account entered my DMs, gave me access to a couple of images of Sam, OG, Mikey, who are 3 NA talents, saying the hard R in Discord DMs and group chats. I have verified the screenshots. I'll show you everything with context below. I've blurred out the screenshots. You don't need to see this, right? It's vile, it's reprehensible language. And he said, apparently these images were taken by French Overwatch World Cup players. OG had left his Discord account logged in onto one of the PCs. Okay, so here is where I want to immediately separate this. I think there is 3 running faults to all of this. One of them has already been addressed with. Obviously, this is extremely offensive language. It has no place in any scene, any public scene, and understandably, any org, when they see that these players, especially if they're on their org, have been saying this stuff, it's not a good thing for the org itself, so it's no surprising that Sam has been dropped from gets dropped from M80. We'll get to those tweets a bit later. But yeah, these players have been dropped from various rosters they were going to be on just hours before the registration, like even maybe an hour before the registration. One thing I've noticed, and you may have noticed I put the Wikipedia for Overwatch World Cup though, these images were generated at the Overwatch World Cup. I believe it was later confirmed that this was during the scrim blocks, but obviously I don't know exactly what day. It's irrelevant, but either way, the Overwatch World Cup went from October last year to November last year. This is what gets me to my next point. Why were these images saved till now? And clearly the only reason you would save these images to now was to cause the absolute maximum disruption on the start of this Overwatch Champion Series. So, this is one of the things I want to say. If you wanted to, make a big scene of it all and, show these horrible players. Look, I'm out here white knighting the Overwatch scene. No, you've caused irreparable damage that we'll never know the full consequences of it. Again, you might say you don't shoot the messenger. These three players, the things they said, they were obviously extremely offensive. They were being said to one another though, in a group chat. This wasn't hurting anyone at this current moment. There was no reason and drive to pull this out now. If this was bullying, then absolutely, if you got this message minutes before the start of registration, you found that someone was bullying this person with these offensive messages, then sure, call them out, let the orgs know, and even if it causes maximum disruption, hell, it is what it is, right? It has to be investigated. And some of these players would have had to be suspended while an investigation took part. Anyway, no, it was intentionally left till before the start of the NA Overwatch champion scene to release these. So this was done with, it was just done vindictively, right? And now all that's going to happen from this are that any prospective org that was looking into joining, and let's be honest here, NA was probably the region with the most financial backing behind it. Any of those orgs now are probably going, nah, it's not worth it. Why would we do it? The Overwatch scene folded before, so already we have a bit of a question mark of, is it going to survive a second time? They may have been like, we'll give it a watch, for stage 1 and see how it pans out. And then maybe we'll get invested in stage 2 instead if it's, looking positive. Nah! Wash your hands of this now. Don't even touch it with a bar pole. There's been so many dramas around players and stuff. It's simply not worth it, right? Anyway, the third part of this I want to mention, and I think it's been overlooked by a lot of people on Twitter. I think there needs to be investigation from Blizzard's side of things into these French Overwatch players. Now, I'm not going to name names. In fact, I'm only going to say French Overwatch players because it was messaged in the tweet by viewer. For all I know, it could be someone completely different. Here's a question. Why are you going into people's open Discords and control effing these offensive things, these reprehensible things, and searching through them? Why are you invading people's public, security? And it blows the mind. I can only, again, see this as being vindictive. And my next question is, what else could they have been doing in these, public shared spaces at the Overwatch World Cup? What other information could they have been trying to, look through? Just flicking through the pages. So, yeah, I think there should be an investigation into these French Overwatch players. And if some of them have been found guilty of, going through people's DMs and trying to find other messages. Imagine this wasn't searching, for the most foul language ever. What if they started searching, terms to do with, self-help or, mental struggles or sexuality struggles and that type of thing. And they just tweeted out and got this as, fuel for the future. This is horrible, horrible shit that is being done by these people. So again, I think there needs to be investigation. And honestly, if something comes true from this, and it is, especially if it was a group of the French Overwatch players and not individuals, I would be surprised if anyone were allowed to compete going forward, because I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't invite, the French Overwatch team back to a LAN event at a World Cup. Because, who knows what's going to happen in public spaces. Anyway, I somewhat digress and get to my final points. But let's see how this, pans out. So what happens from here? What is the knock-on effect? Another unfortunate thing that happened, and again, I want to separate this from the vile shit we were just talking about. Kalush, who was part of this team, tweeted out that he was retiring as well, which didn't really help the matter for M80, because now not only were they searching for an additional player, because they only had 4 players on the roster, they were looking for 3 players. Now, Kalush did tweet out again after this, and I want to make this clear, I haven't got the image, that he messaged the team the day before, which obviously is not great on the timing, but he said, listen, I just can't do it. I haven't got the drive anymore to do it. And he said in another tweet that he messaged and said, listen, if you can't find a replacement for me tomorrow, I will do the preliminaries, I'll get us qualified, and then I'll leave you in a place that you have time to find a tank. Because after these preliminaries, which are for this entire weekend, so day 1 has happened, and we have day 2 and day 3 upcoming. After that, I think there's a month till the stage actually starts, and it would give you more than enough time to find a tank, right? So yeah, I don't know exactly what was going on there. As I understand it, they didn't have a necessary replacement tank. Now, I assume that the intention was for McGravy. He was a former Owl tank. If he couldn't find one, I assume the coach would have taken the slot, and that probably would be more than good enough to qualify you for the open stage down the line. You're probably not looking at your 9-0 perfect record anymore. You're probably looking at the 8-1 records, but that would be more than enough to have qualified you anyway. What happened as a result of all this? What was the knock-on of 2 players missing? Well, let's go to these tweets now. So this is a completely separate entity team called YFP Overwatch. I don't know how big this org is, but I've never seen him in Overwatch before, so I assume this is his first venture into Overwatch. And just before the start of the preliminaries, so I think this is my local time, sadly, which is EU, not NA. I believe this was 2 hours before the start of the event. They tweeted out, we are forging fire. Sorry, the champions are forging fire in their veins, and they introduced their squad, which was Mirror, Zera, Top Dragon, MCD, Magic Mateball, and Neutral Overwatch. Very solid team, right? This is a lot of talent that I've heard of. I've seen them around Owl. I've seen them around Contenders, right? About, I think, an hour and a half later, they tweeted out, due to recent news that happened in the other Overwatch Champion Series teams, we have lost a few players and unfortunately been hit by Rostermania. We'll back for the next split. Good luck to our players. Thank you again for the Overwatch community. Basically what happened was that the team of M80, they started messaging around, and I think this happened to other teams as well who lost players. I don't know exactly the situation on OG and Mike. I don't know if they had teams lined up, but basically there's just this smorgasbord of players trying to snipe other players from other teams hours before the registration closed for the qualifiers. Again, a really bad look for orgs when talent is being sniped off your rosters, and you're forced to withdraw moments before it starts. That's not really good. That's not a good safety thing, right? Yeah, no, it's not. That's not a good safety investment, right? Anyway, to make matters worse, after all of this went through, and I don't want to name drop the players that went onto M80 at this moment. In fact, I don't think it was fully assigned at that point. To make matters worse, though, we then got a message out from M8 to the org. Today we face unexpected challenges as 2 key members of our newly signed Overwatch team departed or were released. So this was Sam, who they let go, and Kalush, who retired. We aimed to build a cohesive unit, but circumstances led us to reassess our path. Rather than replacing the team with players committed elsewhere, we've decided it's best for all parties to part ways. We release our remaining players to pursue their new opportunities and compete in the Overwatch Champion Series and wish these players nothing but success. Stay tuned for further updates. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. This caused everything to simply explode. I only took a screenshot of the Wikipedia page here for the transfers, but players were going here, there, everywhere, sniped from one team, sniped to the other one. 30 minutes before, players were like, LFT, please sign me, I beg you. And it wasn't just, these minor players, like the tier 3 talent, for example. This is your main NA players. This was your tier 1 NA scene. Not having guaranteed teams 30 minutes before the event started. It was just such a horrible look, and you just had these tweet exchanges, all these jokes and stuff, and I just was sat there going like, this is so bad for like Overwatch, like as an esports. I'm like sat there, it's like I've been umming and ahhing like what video I maybe want to try and put together for the start of the Overwatch Champion Series proper with like the Japan and Korea scene, and I've really been struggling because of my health and other factors that has led me not to do a video just yet, but maybe I'll do it a few days later. And then NA just can't get their shit together. It's like, oh my god. Ugh. To be fair, not helped by certain members of the community sending out this information vindictively, but it was such a bad look. And then you saw other tweets, and I don't think any of this was confirmed. Like M80 had tried to sign another roster. Like they dropped the roster and just tried to sign an unsigned roster. I don't know if that came to fruition. I mean, the actual full effect of this, I still don't fully understand. I don't think anyone does yet. I don't think everyone's got the full picture of how the dust settled. I believe these players who were a part of, or the remaining parts of YFP and M80 ended up coming together as now an orgless organization. And obviously without any scrim time with one another, competed in the Overwatch Champion Series preliminary stages as this, like, you know, free entity team, if you want to call it that. And I don't know how they did, but I assume they did well because the talent was simply too good to not do well, regardless of scrim time. But yeah, that is kind of the overarching thing. And the really funny thing, the real kicker about this, and I don't have the tweet sadly, is to the message of M80 where they were like, oh yeah, this is we're leaving the scene, like holy shit, like just cut and run. That was their response basically as an org. We're cutting and running before it's even begun because fuck this shit. We're not dealing with this. Like, see you later, we're out. We're not guaranteed to get any money. The scene doesn't generate as much money as other esports, I imagine. Yeah, just, nope, cut and run, we're out. I think Viewer responded to that message saying like, oh, you have to, you know, drop the other 3 players for the faults of like the 2 or whatever it was, or the other 1. Why did you sit on this for so long? Why did you release it? Why did you have to release it now? Why couldn't you wait till like a week or so later when the teams were finalized for the stages? And then they could have done, you know, the free dropping of players. It really didn't do any benefit to release it during the 3 days of the preliminaries. It was, you know, clearly was vindictive, clearly designed to cause as much disruption to NA Overwatch and as much damage to the Overwatch esports scene as a general. So, yeah, that was the dark day of Overwatch for me, and we will never see the full repercussions of it because we now won't know what orgs may have joined later on down the line, and as when they would have joined. Maybe they would have joined in stage 1, maybe they would have waited for stage 2, hell, maybe they'll wait for season 2 now instead. But yeah, alright, that is, with a somber note, that is this news for the Overwatch Champions Series. If you enjoyed it, why don't you leave a like and subscribe? Everything helps me out, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.